Hello all. Hope you all are doing good. My BC colleagues in the community. So, in the previous videos, we have covered how to upgrade from a BC version to another BC version and from BC 14 to the latest BC version. And thank you for all your love on those videos, all your comments, all your questions. And that's why we keep on releasing new videos based on your comments. So before I start talking about what we will discuss today, just a humble request, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That keeps us motivated. And please add comments to these videos because your comments are the reason why these videos are being released. It helps me to learn new things when you add a comment. And if I don't know about that topic, if I know about that topic, I understand that the community needs it. So it's you who drives this channel. So keep adding those comments and we'll come up with the new videos as you requested. Okay, so today we are going to talk about a journey to Business Central SaaS from on-premise. And that process is called replication of data from on-premise to BC Online. Today, in this particular video, we'll talk about when you are replicating from the same version of on-prem to same version of SaaS. And in the upcoming videos, we'll talk about other options which are available and what is good in this option, what is bad in this option. We'll learn about it so that you can choose the right path for your customer and the journey to Business Central SaaS is smoother as they go there. So hope that makes sense. If there is any question, please feel free to add them into the chat and I'll be happy to answer that. So for that, what I've done is I have a instance available on my local system called BC220 dev, which is pointing to a database and that has two companies, Cronus USA and Demo Data. Now, if I look at the version by going into help and support, I'll see that this is version 22, a specific version build CU0 or less, and this is US localization in this case. You can have a different localization. That's just you need to know what version you are in. At this point on this environment, I have Microsoft extensions and I also have, and let me zoom this in because sometimes I get this comment a lot that we can't see what you're showing. So when you look at this extension management page, you'll see that I have most of Microsoft extension and APTE, which right now published as dev, to be fair. But you can have multiple PTs, you can have extensions from third parties and all, which are available in your on-premise environment for your customer. And just FYI, this is connected to this database on the local host server called BC22 on-prem to SaaS. And that database is also available here on my local SQL server called BC22 on-prem to SaaS. And I'll walk you through why I'm showing all this. So before we start our journey, we need to understand some nuances of what gets replicated and what's not. So remember one thing, that the replication seems to be done from the front end, which we'll see a while ago. But not all your on-premise table will replicate to Business Central SaaS. And don't worry, it's pretty easier to find out which table will replicate and which table will not. So when you go to your base Microsoft application or ISV application or your extension, if there are tables like, and I'm just picking one where that property kind of existed so that you know, and when you're doing comparison. So if you look at the user table, where is the user table? Okay, I should not have set the star maybe. And that is not in the base application. See how stupid I am sometime. Okay, not here, maybe here, yeah. So when you look at some of these tables, there is a property that is available from BC 14 and higher, okay? So you can also check this property in BC 14 also. That property is called replicate data. Now, if this property is set to false, that table will not be considered during the replication process. So when you move from your on-premise to SaaS and you're doing a record match to verify that everything moved or not, you will have to skip doing a cross check between the tables on-prem to tables on SaaS whether replicate data is false. And it's pretty easy. If you build a simple report on table metadata, you will be able to filter out whether replicate data is false, and you get a list of tables which are not replicated. The other common table, if I'm not wrong, is changelog entry and permissions and other table, right? So when you look at the changelog entry table, I'm pretty sure it is set to replicate data false. Your changelog will also not go to SaaS, just FYI. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. There's not always one-to-one match, and Microsoft, as the extension owner, decides which table will go to SaaS and which tables are not going to SaaS. Majority of your business-related table will go to SaaS, so don't worry about it. On the similar lines, AISV can set that property, and even on your pertinent extension, you can set that property. Okay, so hopefully that point is clear. Now, what we saw here, that this is Business Central 22 US. So what I need now is a Business Central SaaS instance, which is this, where I have a production environment or a sandbox environment. You can replicate to production or sandbox, it's your choice. I am doing it production so that it'll run a little bit faster and we can complete the video in time. This should match to the region or the country that you have on-prem, and this should, for this video, let's understand, this should match the major version. So this is 22.4 right now on my Business Central SaaS, whereas on my Business Central on-prem, it is 22.0. But both are the major release the same, which is BC 22. You can, if you're watching this video in future, and right now if there is BC 25 or 35 release, and if the process does not change, which I don't expect to be changing now, then you can still follow the same step. The major version of the product should be same. It's BC 22 here and the BC 22 here, and the US localization here, the US localization in my cloud version also. Once you have done the basic mapping, let's go through the setup. Let's try to set up the replication, and then I'll tell you about the nuances that are happening behind the scene. So let's go to Business Central SaaS. I already have my production environment loaded here. First, you need to make sure that any extension that you want to bring forward, like in this case, I would like to bring my pertinent extension forward. I should have that installed before I start replication. Okay. So if I have 5 PTEs, you should make sure that all of them are installed on your Business Central SaaS environment. So I'll just pick the path of this. Okay. And once I've done that, this is my extension source. I'll just go ahead and install that extension. All right. And maybe I have done some mistake which are not allowed in SaaS. I have some tables and all, but I don't have a permission. So let me just quickly add a permission setup so that I don't get an error message while publishing. Demo permission. And let's add my prefix. And let's finish this. Okay, so now I have the permission, so I'm good there. So let me generate the app now. Okay, generated. Let me pick the app now. Okay. Once I pick the app, I should be able to install it and deploy this. So now when my schema is a match, and if you have extensions from ISVs, which should be available in app source, if those are the situation, then you can always go to your extension marketplace and get those ISVs installed based on whatever you are using on-prem. And if there is an ISV which is not available on SaaS, then you might have to wait for that to be available. But if you find one of these which you are utilizing, you can just do a get it now and get that set up on your environment. So from an extension perspective, you should have the similar extension available on your on-prem and SaaS environment, and their schema should match. And when I say schema, that means the table details and the page, the field details should be exactly same, and that's how the replication will work. So once this gets installed, and it takes its own time, you will notice that there is already a company called Kronos USA and my company. What you need to do is you need to search for cloud migration management. setup. Okay. Cloud migration setup. You can either search for it, or there is an assisted setup page also available for this. The first window where you accept the terms and condition. When you click on next, it asks you to choose the product. Now let's have a look. What are the products? The products are Dynamics GP. I have no experience about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. This is what we'll use in the future videos, but this is what we are using right now, called Dynamics 365 Business Central current version .22. So remember, I am replicating from a version 22 to a version 22. Forget about CUs, but I am exactly, the major version is 22. So if you are replicating from the same version as you have on premise to Business Central SaaS, then you will choose this option. And otherwise, you will choose this option, which we may see in the next video. And what are the differences? That's for another video. Once you choose the right product types from here, you will be prompted to set up a connection to your database. Now there are two options. Do you have a SQL Server locally hosted, or your database is hosted on Azure? If it is Azure, then things a little bit change, right? If SQL Server, then things are a little bit change. And the first thing that we need to do is provide a connection string to your SQL database. And when you hover over this, you will see the syntax of that command, how you need to pass at it. So what I'll do is, I can't do it. Let me try again. I'll just, my cursor is going down, I guess. Okay. So I'll just copy this and I'll put it on my notepad. Okay. And I'll say, okay, my server name is localhost and I'm trying to connect to it, and I'm connected to my machine right now, and I don't have any instance. If you're using an instance, like I have one here. If I try to connect to this, I can do a SQL 2019, I guess. So if you have something like this, what you can do is you need to specify your instance name in your connection wizard here. I am not using the SQL instance, so I'll keep it as it is. Then my database name on my local host is this BC22 on-prem to SaaS. So I'll just paste that in. If there are spaces, I would suggest to use double quotes, and that's how it is. Then the user ID and the password. Now remember, you can't do it with a Windows authentication. Okay, so you'll have to create a SQL user or database login into your environment. I've already created one, so I'm just going to log in with that user. Okay. Make sure that you are able to connect when you create that account, so that you are able to connect to your SQL Server. And then make sure that when you go into your database properties, okay, I cannot go there. Maybe I don't have permission assigned to it. So I'll go it from here, from my Windows account 1, and I'll go ahead and set up the permission for it, right? So I can go ahead and go to user mapping. Where is my user mapping? Oh, sorry. I'll go here and pick up my account, which is this. Go to the properties of my account that I have. And from user mapping, I'll make sure that it is mapped to my database, because this is new login that you'll create for your application. So make sure that it is associated and have access to the database, and define the permissions that are needed to access the database. Once you have done that, now you're good to go, and you can verify that by going into your SQL login, which I just logged in here, and try to see that can you access the database. And if you are, then you are good there. So you need to make sure that you have a SQL Server username password set up. And once you have set that up, you need to give your ID here, and I'll do it separately on another screen. And then let's say the password is demo1, which is not the actual password. But keep that in, and then you'll copy all the string as it is. And what I'll do is I'll copy it into my second screen so that I can use my password there. And with this just set of info, you can copy this. You don't need this colon, that is just the separator. So you'll copy all this command, which I'm doing from my other screen where I have already pasted my password into the query. I can come back here and paste that in here. Once I do that, it needs a integration runtime. Now, a runtime is something which is used to uh, connect between your on-premise and SaaS environment, Microsoft Integration Configuration Manager, which is needed there. So I'm doing it for the first time, so I don't have it. So I can just click next and it'll generate a runtime name for me, which it did here. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll come back to my notepad. As in, I'm pretty sure that the value will be retained there, but just for the safety, I'll just copy this as it is. Once I've done that, I need to download a self-hosted integration runtime. Once you go into the Microsoft Integration Runtime, I prefer to pick the latest version that's available, which is this one. Click on download and it'll get downloaded on my machine in a while. Now, when you are setting up this replication and when you have installed these components and you have completed the wizard, what it does, it creates certain kind of commands in your local SQL server or views or triggers, if I'm not wrong. They get, and even tables get created in your on-premise SQL environment. And utilizing those tables and those triggers and wizard, Microsoft then connects your on-premise database to a integration runtime, which is used by Data Azure Factory and Data Synapse. Then it kind of connects these both the environments together, and then based on the name of the table, not from Business Central perspective, but from a SQL perspective, it just starts copying the data from your on-premise environment to Business Central SaaS environment. So when you are replicating, don't think from a BC perspective, think from a SQL perspective, because it is going to match the name of the tables in your on-premise environment and do a exact match in Business Central SaaS. And if the match is found, then the data will be replicated to Business Central SaaS. Otherwise, that table will be marked as skipped. So what are the things that you need to check while you're doing this? First, identify, if you are worried about it, that which are those tables which will not be replicated. If you need some help, just add a comment. I'll show how to build that. Right? Once you know that these tables are not getting replicated, let your customer know. And if there are tables which are important, like one of the table that we have seen, which is very important for customers, is the record links. Because people have links attached to different records, then you will have to figure out a plan. We know what our plan is, which is our private plan. But you need to figure out a plan to move that data to Business Central SaaS, because that's important for customer. So I'd highly encourage to generate the list of tables that are not getting replicated. Now, if you make that list, that is not going to remain consistent in the future. So what I would suggest, create a report or even a page if needed, so that you can check that before doing the replication every time. And I'm not saying that that list will change every cumulative update, but I would like you to check every time what's being added into non-replicating tables, right? I don't hope that there will be major changes now, but if there are, you should always be up to date what tables are not being replicated. And based on that, you can decide based on your customer requirement which of these tables are still needed and how to handle those situations. So this being downloaded, I'll take a pause and I'll resume the video once the download process is completed. Okay, it seems the download is completed. Let's quickly, it's on the final stage, it seems. So let's wait for a while. Let it be over. Okay, it's done. Let's open the file and let's start the installation of Intricacies Runtime. Once you do that, and if I'm able to click on it, I think I did. Let me see. It takes some time. Once it starts, it's just a pretty simple wizard that you need to follow, and which will kind of complete your replication process or setup process. So here is the window that you get, and then you choose the language, then you accept the license agreement, you choose the path, and then you install it. Now, one thing to remember, if you are doing multiple migrations for a customer, I think you will do a test migration, after which a customer will test the process of upgrade that you're doing or replication. And once they are done with it, you will re-replicate to their production environment, right? Remember to uninstall this component once your replication is done so that it doesn't get confused around what the previous installation and all. And it's a pretty heavy software. It takes approximately 3 GBs or 4 GB space on your system. So it's better that you remove it once your migration or replication process is completed. Once the installation is completed, what we can see is we are installing it, and then we'll use this authentication key, which is my unique runtime key, to configure this Microsoft integration runtime. Once that is configured, then and only then I should be clicking next so that it understands that the connection has been built between your Business Central on-premise database and your Business Central SaaS database. So let's wait for this to complete, and I'll resume the video once that's completed. Okay, so the setup is completed. I forgot to tell you one important setting, that you cannot install the software if the computer where you're configuring it have the power option set to hibernate that computer, because the process need to be keep running. So whenever you're doing it, and typically you will do it on a server, you should not have the power setting set in a way that the computer goes to sleep or hibernate after a certain period of time, because the process will stop at that moment otherwise. Once you're done with it, hit finish, and it'll automatically ask you, do you want to open it? And once you click OK, it'll load this window. Here we need to paste this authentication key that we have, so let's just quickly go ahead and paste it, and then hit the register button. Now it's validating that is that the right key, is it connected to a database that you have, and so on and so forth. Once it is done, you hit finish, and it right now registers that I'm able to connect to a cloud environment, to an on-prem environment, and that's how this connection is being built right now. Until unless you are passed through this process, don't hit anything on the screen, wait for it to be over. Once the initialization of integration runtime node component is completed, you are good to move to your next step, which is the next option, and then we'll see what else is available on that screen. So let's wait for it. Okay, now you see that it is done. I don't want to close it or open anything. I'll just hit next here, and that will verify that did I downloaded the self-hosted runtime integration runtime, did I install that, did I use the same authentication key to validate the connection between my on-premise and SaaS environment, and if everything looks good, it'll move to the next step, right? And at this point, it is scanning my on-premise database to see what kind of companies I have. Do I have one company? Do I have 5 companies? What is the database size? What is per company size and all? So it is trying to scan all that details. And before we go there, let me go back here and show it to you, because that will make sense at the end of this video, that what is the capacity of this environment at this moment, or storage by environment. I guess that's what I'm interested in. So right now, if you look at it, there is 0.05, and I'll make a note of it so that we can scan this later. So this is the database size with just one company or 2 company into it, the my company and the other company, and I'll make a note of it here into my this thing, and I'll say pre-replication DB size. Okay, 105 GB. Now we will go back to our Business Central and SaaS and see what's happening. So right now it's kind of trying to validate that the authentication, the user account that you have set up, do it have the right permissions or not on the database. It also trying to install some of the behind the scene components which are needed to run this process on your local SQL server. And whenever you try to troubleshoot it with Microsoft, they walk you through around those different things that are being added, and I'm don't think that I'll be violating anything if I do show you all that. So there are some which are related to your replication here, and they come with some name if I remember those names. But I know that there are tables which are, let me see if I can search for replication into this window. Okay, replicate. Okay. Okay. So while this is happening, let's keep, oh yeah, I might be forgetting about the name, but okay. Coming back to this, if you look at it, now remember this, the database size of this seems to be 0.6 and 0.6 GB, okay? So my on-prem companies are, are 0.6 each, 0.06 each, right? Each. So what I'm going to do right now, because I already have a Cronus USA available in my SaaS and I don't want to override it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to only replicate or migrate this company. At this point, you can choose which companies you want to migrate. If you have a long list of companies, because some customers have a long list of companies, you should be doing it into pieces. You can select few at the first time based on their database size, and then once that is done, you can reselect the companies and replicate the another set going forward. If you want to do all at the same time, you just enable this boolean and that's good. I'm only going to replicate my demo data into my cloud environment. So what I'm anticipating right now, that my database, once it gets replicated into Business Central SaaS, should be something like this, right? Because each company is 0.06 GB, so it should be something like this GB at the end of the replication, post-replication database size, right? I'll place that later. So I've chosen the company that I want to migrate. I'll hit next, and that completes my setup wizard for cloud migration. Now, once my setup wizard is completed, it'll ask me that do I want to open the cloud migration management page, which helps you to set up your migrations. We'll walk you through around this, but what's happening right now is the cloud migration is set up. And right now, if you look at the status, it says creating companies. So what's happening right now is you can't see it here. I don't know because it's not yet initialized, but you'll have to kind of keep checking that if you're selecting 7 companies, are those companies created and is their setup completed? So I'm waiting for it to be completed. Till the point it's not yet completed, I'll not see a change in the status. You can keep refreshing this to see. But let's understand this window till that time. Here you'll see all the logs as you go through the process. Then this action will start your replication. This action will run your data upgrade, which we'll talk about in detail later. Refresh status just updates the status here. Complete migration is when you're saying that I'm done with it and everything seems good. I'm done and completing the migration. These options are for some other discussion. We'll do that. User mapping is when you, as we know that there are some users coming from on-prem, but they will not be, as we saw that the tables of user table is not being replicated, then what does the define user mapping does? So the define user mapping picks the user IDs from different ledgers where there are user ID fields. And then if you map them to a cloud user, it automatically runs and renames those username on all your ledgers. So like in the real register, there's a username associated and you would like to replace it with a new name, then you need to define that mapping here after your replication is done. So not right now. Okay. So now you see the status is ready for replication, and how you can verify that is when you go here, you will see that the setup status for this new company which just got created is completed. You will still not be able to see it here, I hope. Yes, unless it's completed. So before we move ahead on other things that are there, what you can do is run a diagnostic run if it's a big database. Now the diagnostic run does not copy any data, but it is just used to see that is the setups and everything looks correct that you have set up on this environment for this replication. We'll go into more option in a while, but I should be able to start my replication. Here it'll show you how many tables are successful, And here it'll also tell you how many companies you have selected, how many are pending, and how many has been replicated. So let's hit run data replication. And it says you are ready to start, and you say yes, and the status changes, replicating data or something like that, replication in process, and you will be able to see the progress as we move ahead here. But while this is going on, let's understand what else is there. Here, there's a reset cloud data, which kind of deletes everything that you have on the cloud, and you can kind of re-replicate if needed. Runtime service key, which is that key that we have. If you want to reset that key, you can do it from here. Check for update, looks for the update into the pipeline of the cloud migration. Okay. Select companies to replicate. Now, this is that option where you can switch if you have multiple companies to say that, oh, in the first set, I'll only do 2 companies. Once the replication is over, I'll go to this page, uncheck those companies, check new companies, and then wait for the creation company process and then run the data replication again. Okay. What else is here? I'll come to this in a while. Let's refresh this to see is there any change on the status. So there's yet nothing changed here. You also see the tables here and here. Now there's repair companion table record. Now there had been problems in the past where the data is available in the table when you go into the table information, but is not visible on the UI or the page. So I highly encourage people, once they have completed their replication and other processes in the cloud migration management, they need to make sure that they run this option to repair companion tables, which is especially table extensions. Set up cloud migration, which we have already done. Sanitize tables, it's a pretty interesting one. So if you remember, there used to be a problem in the legacy classic nav world where you might enter a junk character, which back then was supported, but in a Business Central RTC client, or not Business Central, but even the nav RTC client, there were problems if they were part of the primary key, because those junk characters were not understood by the role tailor client that we have. But there are still chances that that data, you might have cleaned it up on the master records or master fields, but it might exist on other tables. Now this option, which is also available on-prem from BC 14, I'm not sure about the CU, but some of the CU, but there's this PowerShell command available. But this runs the sanitized table process, which checks for the line feed, character feed, and other special characters into your data. Now, doing it in SaaS is a little bit tricky because you need to define which table you want, which company you want. But there are ways to do it on-prem, on your BC 14 and higher, so that it can run automatically via PowerShell. And if something fails, it shows you what are the tables and what are the records that are causing conflict. So I'd prefer that you do the sanitization part in your on-prem, which is typically running the invoke nav sanitize field commands. Okay. This is just a new UI which we are in, and these are all the options that we saw. So as the time goes by, you'll see that the tables will kind of get updated here. So when you do refresh status, you'll notice that things will change. Not right now, but let's wait for a while and I'll show you how the progress is going on. Oh, now it tells me that there is 678 tables. So it was trying to calculate how many tables had the data. And these are flow fields, so I can actually click on it and go back and see what's happening. Now, as I told you, it is looking for your SQL table name match. Okay. Now, all of us understand, hopefully at this moment, that a SQL table name is a combination of the table name, dollar, your extension GUID. So that's why your extensions should be exactly same between the environments on your on-premise and SaaS before you start replicating. Otherwise, that table will be marked as not to be processed or errored out. Okay. Don't change your extension ID before you are moving from on-prem to SaaS. You can keep the same extension ID. That's the beauty of it. And based on this table name, it will look for the same name on on-premise And if it finds it, it just copies that data in here. Now this page, you can filter it out for sure based on different companies that you have. You can also filter it out based on the table names if you want, and that will show you filtered results out of it. Coming back here, let me refresh the status, see is anything successful till now. I'm in doubt that something was successful, but let's have a look. It seems that there are already some filters applied, so I'll not be able to find much here, but let me see. I would only like to see where the status is, and maybe this is not the right one. Let me go here. This shows all. So I should be able to filter here and say I would like to see anything which is only in progress. And it seems nothing is in progress right now. So it's kind of doing some behind the scene checks while it is trying to copy that data. Let's see, is there anything noticeable that's happening on my SQL server? And if yes, then we'll take a note of it. So once I look at it, I see that there has been no active queries. There has been no recent expensive queries, which is a little bit surprising. There should be some of them. No, it seems it's doing nothing at this moment. Let me pick this one and go to activity manager, because sometimes I don't have permission to do certain things on that. So right now, if you look at it, there is a command running on to identify what are the schema, what are the columns and all. It's trying to get the primary key of different tables and all. So, and you can see here that this is happening on my BC on-prem to SaaS. So this is what's happening behind the scene. It is doing some insert on, yes. So these are the tables, replication, batch portions and all. So let's try to see again. Okay, filter. Okay, and this is case sensitive, I think so. Yeah. So let me just see, did I find something on it? And you'll see that there are some tables which are available which were not part of your database before you start doing it, and these tables kind of keep track of how many records from each table has been copied, how many records are being left and all. So this is what's happening behind the scene, and as you notice, as I refresh it, it succeeded with 140 table and there are 533 tables remaining. Now let's have a look on successful table first. It said I found this table and there were total record in the source table, and when I say source, that becomes your on-prem table, 11, and in the target table, which is SaaS, now there are 11 records. How many number of replication you ran? 1. In the same way, it will start showing you all the tables which are being replicated or which have completed replication at this point. So I don't have to, as an eventually, for sure, in the beginning, I had some confusion that is it actually replicating everything, or it's just, do I need to check and spend more time into analyzing what data is being replicated or not? But right now, I'm super confident with this utility that it does what it is supposed to be doing, and it copies that data between the environment. So what I'll do is I'll take a pause. We'll see it in a while once, once the whole replication is over, and then we'll understand what next to be done. So as you can see right now, when I refresh this, my table successful is over, and you can also see here that the completion says replication completed successfully. You can click on these tables, you'll go into details, and show you some different statuses. They might all be success, but there are different colors to this. And don't worry if you even see some error messages, because that's okay sometimes. Let me walk you through why they exist. Now it says could not get the target table count. That's the warning. Can I do a filter here? Let me see if I can. Let's try to filter this out. And I don't want to see anything successful. I actually would like to see anything failed. No. In progress? Nothing. Warning. Are there any warnings? Yes. Now understand this, because people get a little bit confused about this sometimes. Read the messages very clearly, because that will tell you everything. What it says, that there's a table called GP1099 box mapping. This, and it says the table does not exist in the local instance. That means these tables, all these tables that you see here, are in this Business Central SaaS environment, but they don't exist on your on-premise environment. And now you will say why that is. So that is based on extensions that are available on on-prem and Business Central SaaS. Now this list may be a little bit huge in your case, because typically when you are upgrading from an older version, you just install base, system and application apps, and you don't install all other apps, which typically Business Central SaaS have. Because mine was a copy of the Kronos database, you see most of the extensions that I use are available in here. But if I'm upgrading from an older version to Business Central 23 on-prem and then going to SaaS, 22 and then going to SaaS, you'll see pretty selected extension here. And that's the reason why your list will grow. But you don't have to worry about it because that table never existed on-prem, so there is no data that need to be replicated. If there is an error message, then yes, you need to think about it. But for warnings, read the message correctly and understand what that means. This one, it's a success for me because these tables are coming from a GP extension, which I don't need on-prem and it's not available on-prem. Right? Some of these are coming from different apps which are not available on-prem, and that's okay. So even for the warnings, read the description and understand what happened. At that point, once the replication is completed, you should have all the tables either with the status in successful or warning. If there are something on failed, do check and understand what are those error messages. Okay. Once that is done, we'll run this and we'll see what happens. It says no upgrade is needed. Okay, so if not needed, we'll talk about it later. Let's refresh this. Now before we move out of it, let's try to do the define user mapping. Now because I did not had any user on-prem, that's why it's empty, and I didn't create a record with those users, that's why this is empty. But in your case, you will see that there's a list of users which you can then map to the corresponding user in Business Central SaaS. It's a list page where there are two columns, the on-prem users and a SaaS user which need to be filled in. Once you do that mapping, it automatically, on the close event of that page, automatically updates all your legacy record with the new user ID that you have. Then I said, do run the repair companion table record because this is important because sometimes the table extension fields are not visible, even the data is there on Business Central SaaS. So do run this companion step, it's very important. And then what else? Before I complete this, I would like to tell you why you need to complete this because this is important. And is there anything else? Let me see. Nothing. Okay, so let's understand why we need to close this. Okay, so when you go into different pages like permissions, our favorite page where we set up permissions and all. Okay, I don't see that. Am I writing it incorrectly? Permission sets. You will notice that you are only able to see one permission called intelligent cloud, and it is not that they are not there. The system have already applied a filter called intelligent cloud, and same in some other pages. The reason for it is it does not want you or any other user to log into that environment in that time and do certain changes into certain things. So system by default applies that filter to only show you permissions which will not impact and which are not needed for this process, right? So make sure when you have done this, do complete your migration because this is important. Until unless you do that, that filter is applied in so many areas, not just into the permission page. So if your user is complaining that I can't see permission, I can't see this and that, that's the reason that you haven't completed the migration process. Once you hit the complete migration process, there's a checklist. Read the help, make sure that you have all the users, run migration is completed. Are there any errors you have fixed, and so on and so forth. Read all this, and once you agreed with that, accept it and close it. Now, before I close it, I just want to walk you through that if you have to do other companies, what you can do. is you come here, you uncheck this company, you check this company, and then it automatically start trying to create this company again. Okay, if you need to see that, just let me know and I'll walk you through around it. That's not a big deal. So what do we do now? We complete it, we accept the agreement, and we hit the close button. As we do that, it should change its status that it is completed. Okay, so it should be done. Let me refresh this again. Not happening. Let me try doing this again and accept it and close it. Oh, sorry, I should not close this, my bad. I should accept it and I should disable the cloud migration from the top. Once I do that, it'll ask me for confirmation and I say yes, and at that point your replication is over. Remember a few things while doing this. Your users should not be able to access your on-premise environment, because if they make any entry which is created after that table is replicated, that entry will not move to Business Central SaaS. Okay, and before we move to the end of this video, let's quickly check that our custom data came into the picture, and then we also have to check one important thing. So the table, the extension that I had some fields on customer, I guess, and vendors using table extension, and then they also had one additional table and one table there. So let me just try to see it here while this is loading on my on-prem. When I do customers, I should be able to see on a list view. And where is my list view? Okay, where is that? Yes, list view. That I have added some field called demo text and decimal. And I'm right now here in my Cronus USA. Sorry, I'll have to switch this to be my on demo data. And in the same way, I'll switch it here. So right now, if you see in the Cronus one, it's empty. I'll have to refresh this again so that I can actually see my new company that has been initialized. Now, while this is happening, let's go into customers here on my on-premise environment, and you'll notice that I added some field which have some data available on those new fields that I've added here at the end. So there is the customer description and the balance, and same for vendors. And then I also have some ledgers created, demo customer ledger, which have some records here. Okay, so if every replication was successful, I should be able to see all that here also. So let me do that, demo data. Okay, and in this company, I should be able to see that I have the same data or not. And even on my new tables that I just added, do I have the same data available or not? Oh, I did not set up the company, my bad. I should have done that. Okay, so I'm good with that. And I think there is an option in your cloud migration management where you can set up the company. But okay, if you don't do it, you have to do it here. So you see all that data kind of also came in here. And if I look it into my custom tables, the data is also available here, which is part of my extension and not part of the Microsoft extension. Okay, so the data is available. Let's quickly go back to our admin center and just do a refresh of my database size so that we can see the refreshed database size. What was our guess? What was our number when we are trying to start? It was 0.11 GB, right? So let's wait for this to refresh, and once this gets refreshed, we'll see the new number that's available. It's trying to calculate, and it is 0.12 GB at this moment, which is a little bit higher than this on-premise environment. A calculation mistake for me, I guess, but that's how your database size is available here. You want to check your tables that are making this data, you can go into your table information on-prem as well as on SaaS. And if you are new to it, you would like to do this, do a comparison. If you see a mismatch, then understand it from two things that impact this. One, are the tables that are mismatching are because of they are set to replicate data false? One scenario. The second scenario is, are the same extension available on-prem and SaaS? Because if they are available on SaaS, they might have more tables in SaaS, which may not be available on-prem. So don't worry about it. Take it from that perspective. Okay. So you can filter out the company if needed, and based on that, you can see what number of records you get out of these different tables and how much data is available on those tables on-prem and SaaS. So before I let you go, let's quickly do a summary of what we learned today. For replication, what you need a integration runtime key, which is generated. You will have to set up a SQL user account with username and password. You can't do replication with Windows authentication. You should select the company that you would like to replicate. If there are more than a certain set of companies that you can understand based on their database size, company sizes, you need to do that process in parts. If there is a mismatch, which is a warning in your replication process is completed, look at the error message correctly before you take any decision or be in panic. Okay. The reason for that is because there might be different extensions installed on-prem and SaaS, and that are causing that conflict. Once the replication is successful, make sure that you run repair companion tables and then make sure you complete the migration and close it after reading the checklist. Otherwise, there will be filter applied on different pages. And that's it. So, do you learn something new out of this video and you would like to share that knowledge like I'm doing? Please hit the share button and share it on your social media accounts. If you like the content, then you know the drill. Hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed the button, do click on the subscribe. You will get notified whenever a new video is posted far earlier than people who get noticed about these videos from social media. And sometimes I don't even announce them in social media. So if you are a subscriber, you get notified by YouTube that there's a new video in the channel that you have subscribed to. So there are additional benefit of subscribing. So that's being said, I'll see you in the next video into another migration or replication video and see how it is different if you're not doing it from the same version. If you have any questions around replication, keep adding them. It helps to make the content better for the community as you keep asking those questions. Till then, have a nice day, and I'll see you sooner than later on the next video on the series, and we'll talk about what else is available and which options we did not cover, which are not relevant to this particular video. Thank you. Have a nice day.